Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to go over upcoming book releases that I'm excited for over the next 3 months. So March, April, May, the spring months. I try to do these every quarter just because books are announced all the time and it's just easier for me to really dial in on the next 3 months. I do know books coming out further in the year obviously, but I feel like every few days I'm finding out about another new book that's coming out. So we're going to talk about the next 3 months, and I know I'm probably missing books. These are just the ones that I'm super excited that are coming out, that I know about, that I've put on my list. If you see me looking down to my right, it is because I have my Google Sheets down here, which is where I keep everything book related for me, because that's just the easiest place to keep all of my lists and everything. I have it here as reference, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about each book because there are quite a few that I want to get through. So buckle up. It's going to be, I think, a relatively long video. Not like super long, but there are quite a few books to get through, so I'm not sure how long this is going to end up being. Before we start, let me know what books you're looking forward to that are coming out in the next few months. Maybe they're not on my list, so I'd love to add them. If there's something that you think I'd be interested in, let me know in the comments and I'll add them to my list. So starting in March, coming out March 4th, we have The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. This is from her Chronicles of Castelline series, which is her first adult series. It's the first foray she's had outside of the Shadowhunters universe, and it is definitely more high fantasy than the Shadowhunters was. There is a little bit of romance, but it is definitely not the primary focal point of the book, or of the series. We only have Swordcatcher, which is the first one. The Ragpicker King will be number 2, and we did have to wait, I think almost a year and a half. I think that Swordcatcher came out in October of 2023. So it's been a while since we had a book in this. So I've tried to explain the premise of this book series before, and it never goes over well because it's high fantasy, so it's difficult for me to put into words anything that makes sense about it, but I will try. We're following Connor and Kell. Connor is the crown prince. Kell is his sword catcher, who is a basically body double for him. If there's like a dangerous situation, Kell goes in instead of Connor, just because they don't want to lose the crown prince to some like rebel group that's trying to kill him. There is a rebel group in the kingdom that is causing issues, and that is a big part of the first book, is Connor trying to win over the people because his father's not really fit to be doing that right now. That is another part of the story. So Connor and Kell are put in a lot of situations, both of them, with this rebel group. And then we're also following Lynn, who is, I can't remember like what her people are called, but they're like kind of isolated in the kingdom. Like they live in a certain area of the kingdom and they have like more roles than the rest of the people. They have like this type of magic that is exploited by certain groups as well. So like the king doesn't want them roaming the kingdom, but he also has them serving for him because they have these abilities that other people don't. So we meet Lynn through Connor and Cal. Like she helps them in the first book, and then there's a little bit of a falling out there. She has a little kind of her own side story going on, which leads her and then Kell to be working together, I believe, in this book. So there is this underbelly, dark underbelly of the kingdom as well, and the leader of those people is the Ragpicker King. So I think that this book is going to focus more on that because he was brought in right at the end of the book for reasons that the story, just like the plot led to him at then. So I think we're going to be focusing on that and him and his groups of people, and both Kell and Lynn have their own missions that they're trying to accomplish, and then Connor does eventually probably come back in because he also has things that he's dealing with as the crown prince that he will need their help with. So that was probably extremely confusing, but that's about the best that I can give without totally giving away the plot of the first book with what I believe is going to happen in the second one based on the synopsis that I read. Also coming out on March 4th is Wildside by Elsie Silver, and this is Tabby and Reese's romance. And I can't 100% remember who Tabby's nephew is. I know she has custody of him because her sister passed away, and I cannot remember if Reese is the father, but he was never like fully with Tabby's sister, and he comes back into town and is like threatening custody, I think, of the kid. But I think overall the plot is basically marriage of convenience, and I believe Reese is the father of the kid because, or at least he is involved enough with the kid that he's going to help Tabby by doing this, because these were supposed to all be single father, single dad romances, so that would make sense, but I can't 100% remember. But this is not what I would say a cowboy romance. It does take place in a small town. It's a small town romance that is connected to the Chestnut Spring series, but these are all single father. I think the biggest trope is single dad in this one, but I'm not 100%, like in this series, but I'm not 100% sure. So excited for that. It's Elsie Silver. I will obviously read it regardless of what the plot is, because I've enjoyed pretty much every book I've read by her, to some extent. I've not rated anything less than 3 stars that I've read by her. So I do have both books that come out on the 4th pre-ordered. I will be getting both of those. Coming out on the 11th of March, we have Rosie Danon's Fan Service, which is a paranormal rom-com between this girl whose favorite TV show was this like werewolf detective series that is now off air, but she is like the biggest fangirl about it, I guess you could say. Like, she's put a lot of effort into, it says, archiving fictional supernatural lore, and that has made her like internet famous, but she hates the main character, or the actor that played the main character from that series, because I think like she met him at one point and he was like, don't meet your heroes kind of thing. And then he ends up finding himself in the woods, like wakes up in the woods one morning and has no idea how he got there, and I'm pretty sure he's like a werewolf. So he goes to her because he's the only person that he knows that has like supernatural lore expertise, and asks him to help her, but it's like, can she get over her hatred of him to help him out? So I think it is like reluctant enemy, like reluctant allies to lovers, I believe is what the trope is. So I've been more interested in paranormal romance ever since I listened to The Fake Mate, and then I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So they were both, I loved The Fake Mate. I didn't physically read it. Obviously I listened to an audiobook by Lana Ferguson. Really enjoyed that. Loved Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So I think I will enjoy this, but we'll see. I'm going to give it a shot. I believe it's going to be the Afterlight book for Illumicrate, which is kind of how it got on my radar. I saw someone mention that is probably going to be the book for that month, so I will be getting it if that's the case. If not, I still may pick it up, just because, again, I am getting a little bit more into that genre. It is an interesting one to just kind of like dip into every now and again. Also coming up on March 11th is Lucy Score's Story of My Life, which she says is Gilmore Girls meets Schitt's Creek. So sign me up. It is about a writer that is running late on her deadline, and on an impulse, she buys this house in this small town in PA, which I love that Lucy Score is from Pennsylvania, because I am too, and she writes little small towns, I think, in the general area. That's, I think, where she gets most of it. She's from the other side of the state than I am, but she always kind of emulates Pennsylvania in her books. But anyway, she moves to this small town it's kind of struggling, and she buys this house that needs a lot of work on a whim, because she's basically having a crisis. If she doesn't meet this deadline, like, that's it for her. So she goes there to get inspired, buys this house, and meets the contractor. It's a romance. I think we all know what happens there. I think it is a little bit grumpy Sunshine, because he is grumpy. I don't know if she's Sunshine, but it does say that he's kind of like this grumpy guy. It's a Lucy Score romance. It's a small town romance. It is literally sounds like a Hallmark movie, but it is the first in her new series, which is called Story Lake, which is the town that this takes place in. So looking forward to it. I have enjoyed Lucy's books. She writes spicy books. I read certain authors for certain reasons, and when I want a spicy small town romance, Lucy Score's who I'm going to. So I like what I like. Then also on the 11th coming out is Smoke and Scar by Gretchen Powell Fox, and I have the ARC for this book. So I saw this book advertised for looking for ARC readers on, I think, Instagram, and I started reading about it, and it sounded really interesting, so I did sign up for it and I got it. But it is about this kingdom that holds this crucible every 25 years, which is a legendary series. These are Fae people. So it's a legendary series of trials that occurs every 25 years that offers a chance for peace in this kingdom. So we have Illyria, who is our main female lead. She lost the man she loved in the last crucible, and now his sister is trying to take part in it, so she has to protect her sister from meeting the same fate that he did. And then Cedric is our main male character, and he is a vengeful knight whose lifelong goal is to conquer the crucible on humanity's behalf. And it's finally like he's going to do this one, so he thinks he's going to win this one. The only problem is he has to work with Illyria to get through these trials alive, and he blames her for the death of his parents. So it is enemies to lovers. They basically just have to work together to survive. She's trying to keep her ex-lover's sister safe, and he's trying to win the crucible, so they're working together to survive it and win it, probably, to help save the kingdom. It is going to be the first in a series called the Shattered Crown series, so I'm looking forward to reading it. I do plan on reading it at the end of this month, so the end of February, just so I can get my review up with it coming out at the beginning of March. But it just sounded really interesting. The cover is absolutely beautiful, and I'm very excited to read it. The next book in the Dream Harbor series, which is the Pumpkin Spice Cafe Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, Christmas Tree Farm, and now we're going to have the Strawberry Patch Pancake House. And this follows Iris, who we had a little bit more interaction with. She worked on the Christmas Tree Farm in the last book, so we got to know her a little bit more, but she kind of just hops around job to job. It seems a little flighty and everything, so it should be interesting. So she's our main female lead, and then Archer moves to town, and he is a world-renowned chef that moved to town because the Strawberry Patch Pancake House needed a new chef, and he is now a single father, and he wanted like a nice small community to raise his daughter in. So he needs a nanny. Iris is going to be the nanny. Single dad, forced proximity, slow burn, found family. All tropes that I love. I don't, again, go into these books expecting like the most well-written storyline or anything. They're just a fun, good time when I need like a lighthearted read that I know is going to have a happily ever after. And, you know, we need those more nowadays than ever. We need a happy ever after guarantee. So excited for that one. And I think there's one more left in the series that's coming out in September, but we'll get to that in the next books that are coming out series. On the 18th of March is when Sunrise on the Reaping comes out by Suzanne Collins. This is a companion novel to the Hunger Games series, and it's going to follow Haymitch and his origin story. That's all I really know. That's all I want to know. I'm not really going to look into it much more than that, and I think anyone that has read the Hunger Games, that's all you really need to know. I do not have that pre-ordered yet. I do think I'm going to buy it. It has been probably over a decade, I would say, since I read the Hunger Games. Probably even longer than that, because they came out in 2008, 9, and 10, and I read them when they came out. So we're looking at like 15 years since I read a Hunger Games book. Until last year, I did finally read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But I do remember a lot about that series. I read it again when it was like super hyped and everybody was reading it. I watched the movies. I do remember a lot about what happened. And I obviously know who Haymitch is, and I know that's already got a movie coming out that's going to be attached to it. So it's just his origin story, and I'm very excited to get my hands on that at some point. I'm probably not going to run out and get it right away, but I did want to remember that it was coming out. On March 25th, we have A Summer in the City by Alex Astor coming out. This is her first like standard romance novel. She has the Light Lark series, which is a fantasy romance series, and this is a standalone romance, I believe standalone. I don't know that it's going to be part of a series, but it follows this screenwriter who has the opportunity to do a big budget film in New York City, but she's got a little bit of writer's block, so she returns to the city for the summer to help get her out of this writer's block, and then finds out that her neighbor in her apartment is actually this guy that she hooked up with 2 years ago in like the stairwell. She sees him again. I think something happened like after that too that like made her hate him. And once she sees him, like it kind of fuels her writing again. So he's like her muse in a way, and he is like a tech billionaire. He has to attend all of these like ritzy events and everything, and she doesn't like doing that. She likes to be at home in her little like, you know, nest and everything, but he needs a fake girlfriend to go to all these events with him, and she needs a muse for her screenplay. So I think it's going to be like reluctant friends. I think eventually they're probably gonna be like rivals. I don't want to say enemies. I hate saying enemies when it's like a romance novel. I think it's gonna be like hatred to friends to love is what I believe it's going to be. But we all know how fake relationships end up being, so I did pre-order that one as well. And then, I'm not going to talk too much about the next one because I don't want to ruin it for myself, but the next book in Anna Huang's Kings of Sin series, King of Envy, comes out on March 25th as well, and that is a billionaire romance series, and she's going to have one for each of the deadly sins. So this is, I believe, number 5 in that series. I do not have that pre-ordered yet either. April, on the 1st, we have Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake coming out, and I have not pre-ordered this because, again, it is rumored to be one of the book subscription boxes book for that month that I have. So this is about 3 siblings who are all kind of like living, I don't know how to describe it, like their lives aren't what everyone thinks they are. Like they're living these personified lives that are actually hiding deeper secrets. So the death of their father chooses these 3 kids to reckon with their rivalries, dangerous abilities, and the crushing weight of their unrealized adolescent potential. So we have Thayer, who is a CEO. Thayer is their father, and he was the brilliant CEO of Renfair Magatech, and the father of modern technology. So he has 3 telepathically and electrokinetically gifted children. If you've ever read an Olivia Blake book, I am sorry. we're going to struggle through this together. I love her writing, but it is difficult. She uses big words and she writes very intelligently. And my brain can't always deal with that. But he has 3 gifted children, and each one has a chance to inherit the throne of his company. So the eldest daughter, Meredith, has this groundbreaking, like, a biotech company that she heads, and she just recently cured mental illness. And she is paying off, I think, her ex-boyfriend from exposing her for being a fraud, which I guess she is. And then you have Arthur, who's the middle child and a congressman, the second youngest congressman in history. He's dealing with marital issues, his wife might leave him, and he's losing his re-election campaign. But if he is named like the CEO, like the heir to the throne, it may help him because his wife may stick around, and that may like reinvigorate his re-election campaign. And then I have no idea how to say this last girl's name. Why do we have Meredith Arthur and then I'm gonna put it on the screen. She was once the world's most famous ballerina, has spent the last 5 years as a run-of-the-mill marketing executive at her father's company after a life-altering injury put an end to her prodigious career. She might be lacking in accolades compared to other siblings, but if her father left her everything, it would finally validate her worth by confirming she's been his favorite all along. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it sounds interesting, and she writes such unique books that I will not pass this up. If it is not in the book box that I think it's going to be in, then I'm still going to pick it up. But I have not pre-ordered it yet because I do believe it is going to be in one of the boxes. Also on the first, we have Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. I did not pre-order this, but my sister did, so I will just read her copy. And I think this is about these 2 people that go on a date, and it kind of starts off terrible, but then ends up being like the best date ever. But at the end, she's like, I can't do this. Like, I'm not in a point in my life where I think I can be in a good relationship. And she really liked him, so she didn't want to ruin that. So instead they kind of part ways and just remember each other from that date. And then basically it says, no amount of time or distance is nearly enough to forget that something between them. And the only thing better than one single perfect memory is to make a life and even a love worth remembering. I feel like this is going to be devastating, but that's really all it says, is that they have this wonderful date, and then at the end she begs him to forget her and just kind of move on from that. And then I guess like they just keep getting pulled back together. So I love Abby Jimenez. I will read again anything that woman writes. So sign me up for that one. On the 8th, we have Fearless by Lauren Roberts, which is the 3rd book in the Powerless trilogy. This will be the final book. Obviously it's a trilogy and I just said it's the 3rd book, but I can't talk too much about this, but everyone that has read Reckless, which was the 2nd book, knows what cliffhanger that left off on. So this is going to delve more deeply into, I believe, a love triangle and Kai's brother and all of the issues that came about with that. So that's all I can really say. Also coming out on the 8th, another book I can't say too much about, is The Twisted Thrones, which is by Danielle L. Jensen, and the next book in the Bridge Kingdom series. So won't talk too much about that because I think it's like the fifth or 6th book in that series. So that would give things away, and I have not read all of them. So again, I'm not going to look too much up about that, but I did want to have that on my radar just so that I knew when it was coming out, just so that I knew it was coming out. So when I eventually get there, I know that that book exists. On April 15th, we have Wild and Wrangled, which I believe is the final book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and this follows Camille and Dusty. And Camille was going to marry this guy to help like secure her daughter's future, and then her groom like leaves her at the altar. So like after the not wedding, she needs a place to live. So she goes to buy this house that she's loved since high school, and the neighbor is Dusty. And I guess they had a romance like back in the day, and he's been like running from her because he had like unrequited feelings, I guess, for a while. But when he returns to town, he's been like, since he's returned to town, he's been keeping her at arm's length. So I think this is going to be a second chance romance. These books are adorable if you like a good cowboy romance. I've only read the first 2 so far, but this will be 4 of, I believe, 4. Also coming out April 15th, we have Scorched Skies, which is the first book in Way of Wings series, duology, by E.J. Mello. I have the arc for this book as well. So this is about a world that's divided, and I believe this is like it is inspired by the Icarus myth. So it is a mythology retelling. In this divided world, I'm not going to say all the names of these places because I will screw it up, but there's the winged Volari that rule over the earthbound people, and our main female character, Tanwyn, is the child of a forbidden union, so like her existence is punishable by death. And we have the Crown Prince Zoya is obviously forced to like follow his father in his father's footsteps and everything. So he, acting on orders, captures Tamwin's father and brother and takes them to his kingdom in the sky. So she has to infiltrate the palace to save them as a servant, and then captures the eye of the prince, even though he doesn't know who she is. And they, I believe, begin to have like a forbidden love. Obviously his father doesn't approve and everything, and they have to, she's trying to use him to get her brother and father back, but he starts to fall in love with her, and I don't think it seems like he's reluctant to follow what his father wants him to do. So it's just like star-crossed lovers kind of situation. And the tagline is, they must decide if their love can bridge the divide or if they have flown too close to the sun, which is the famous line with the Icarus myth. That sounds just really interesting, and it is a duology, and I've been looking more for those than long series just because I have way too many going on, but we'll see. I do plan on reading that in March, so that, again, it has a review up in time for its release. Then we have April 22nd, Great Big Beautiful Life, another one I don't have pre-ordered, but my sister does, and this is Emily Henry's new release. And from what I can remember about this one, it follows two writers who are given the opportunity to interview this woman who is, they say it's very like Evelyn Hugo coded. She's like a famous actress, I want to say. Tragic heiress, former tabloid princess, and the daughter of one of the most storied and scandalous families of the 20th century. So she invites both of them over for a trial period, and then she's going to choose which one gets to write the story. However, she starts to only give them like each small pieces of her story, not the full story. So she's giving like Alice, who's our main character, our main female lead, half of the story, and then she's giving Hayden the other half. And they have an NDA in place between the two of them that they can't swap these stories. So I guess it becomes like, there's like an immediate attraction too. So like when they're in the same room, there is like a yearning between them, this says. And it's becoming, so the way she's spinning it for each of them, like if one were to tell the story, it would seem like it was this was the story, and then if the other told the story, it would seem like the complete opposite because of how she's spinning her life for them and like the little tidbits she's giving each of them. So basically it could be a mystery, a tragedy, or a love ballad, depending on how it's written and which one of them is writing it because of the information they've been given. So we'll see how that one works out. I will read it eventually. I'll just borrow my sister's copy again, but I have enjoyed Emily Henry's books, some more than others. But there's always like a nice underlying storyline to them that's not necessarily the love story. There's like a meaning and a lesson to be learned, I think, in all of her books, and I do like that she does that. This says it comes out on the 20th, which I don't know how it could be because books are released on Tuesdays, not Sundays, but I don't know if it's because she's an independent, she's still writing these like independently. But Rewind It Back by Liz Tomforde, which is the 5th and I believe final book in the Windy City series that follows Rio. Yes, it is the final book, and it is Rio and Hallie's story. That's literally all it says. I have it pre-ordered through Barnes & Noble. I pre-ordered a lot of these books the other day because Barnes & Noble just did their 25% off pre-order, plus premium members still got their 10% off, so I had to take advantage of that. So all we know is that it is Rio and Hallie's story, and it's the final book of the Windy City series. That's literally all it says. So I don't remember if we've ever talked about Hallie. I want to say she has been mentioned, and I don't know if it was like childhood friends or whatever, but I'm just excited that Rio's finally getting his love story, so I'm excited to read that. Can't talk about it because I have no idea what the actual tropes are going to be. And then May 13th, we have A Curse Carved in Bone by Danielle L. Jensen, and this is the second book in the Saga of the Unfated, I want to say. I can't read it from the side of the book. It's the second book from A Fate Inked in Blood, and I believe this is just a duology. Yes, it is just a duology. Thank goodness, because she just keeps coming out with the Bridge Kingdom book, so it's nice that she has this small series. So I can't talk again too much about this because it is the second and the final book in this little series, but basically our main character was betrayed at the end of the last book, and this is going to be her overcoming that betrayal and the person that did it. So I can't read the synopsis because it will give things away. But it is a Norse mythology kind of a retelling, and Freya is our main character, so I believe it is inspired by actual Freya. And I really enjoyed the first one. It was like a different premise. It was this woman that was taken by this guy because she has these powers that they've kept hidden all of these years, and basically gets sold to this guy and ends up falling in love with his son. So this guy's already married, mind you, too. Now she's trying to avoid, she doesn't want to use her powers in the way that he wanted to, so she has to avoid meeting that fate, essentially. And I believe I'm just going to try to get that through Book of the Month if they have it, because my first version is from Book of the Month. And I did that with Heartless Hunter as well. I just got both of those through Book of the Month because that was the easiest thing to do, and I got it early because of that. Then coming out on the 20th of May, we have Rachel Gillig's new book, which is the first in a duology. She said she will only write duologies, so I believe this is going to just be that. The Night and the Moth. And I have this pre-ordered, but I also have heard tellings that it may be in one of the book boxes that I have, but the first edition, special edition, was beautiful, and if it's not going to be in that box, I wanted to get my hands on this. So I may end up canceling this pre-order, but I wanted to make sure that I had it. And it follows Sybil, who is a diviner, and you serve for so long in this cathedral as a diviner, and her and these women are like meeting the end of their service, and then this knight arrives, and after he arrives, like, the sisters start to vanish one by one, and he doesn't respect her and what the diviners do, so there's like a bit of a rivalry there, and she needs his help because he is a heretic and he is the only one that can like defeat a god, and she knows that the gods hold the answers to like what is happening to the other diviners, so they have to work together, like reluctantly work together. I believe this will probably feel like similar to the Shepherd King duology because it does seem like it's going to have that gothic feel to it. I don't know, again, too much about the story other than it is like about a diviner and a knight that reluctantly have to work together to solve a mystery of where all these other diviners are going. I feel like terrible that I don't know more about these books, but again, I only can go off of the synopsis, and especially when they're new series, I can't really describe them. So as I read them and put them in vlogs or in my wrap-ups, hopefully I can give more information about them, but I can only go off of what the author has in their synopsis for now. Then on May 20th as well, we have The Love Haters, which is Catherine Center's newest book, and this follows Katie, who is a video producer, and at her co-worker's request, takes a career-making gig profiling Tom Hutchison, who is a Coast Guard rescue swimmer in Key West. So she has to either do that or she's basically going to lose her job. She is not qualified because she can't swim, but she says, yeah, I can do it, I'm fine, I meet all the requirements for this job. So Cole and Hutch are brothers, so that is how obviously her co-worker knew about it. And basically they have this like whirlwind romance while she's there profiling him, and she gets entangled with him more than she wants to, but he's a love hater. So I think she is one that has also been burned by love in the past, so they kind of have to face their fears together, and they're doing it like at this tropical location with like all of these fun little things that they're doing. So that's all I know. I like Catherine Center's books. They are very low spice to no spice. It's just kind of implied on, it's not really like on page spice. I have like recently been wanting to read more and more of her books. I just read The Rom-Commers and absolutely adored it, and that was just in a vlog. So I do want to get my hands on this one. I don't have it pre-ordered, but I will probably try to get my hands on it. I also want to buy a copy of The Rom-Commers because I read it on Kindle Unlimited, but I enjoyed it so much that I do want to have that physical copy. I've also read The Bodyguard by her, and I have listened to Things You Save in a Fire, I think is what it was. And that one was really sweet. That was the first one I ever consumed from her. And then, also on the 20th, I believe, a lot of books coming out on May 20th. I just found out about this book the other day, and I was very excited about it. Ironically, I read The Rom-Commers in the same vlog as Savor It by Tara DeWitt, which was about this small town and this girl who falls in love with the chef that comes to town and all that kind of stuff. But in that story, you also learn about her brother and her best friend who were like high school sweethearts and had a kid very young and now are divorced but still living in the same town together, still raising their son. And there's definitely feelings there still, but like their marriage just didn't work out. And I was so frustrated at the end of that book when we didn't get a conclusion to them. And then I saw that this book's coming out, and that is what this book is. Left of Forever comes out May 20th by Tara DeWitt. They were made for one another until they fell apart. Now divorced and in their 30s, Ren runs the bakery in town and Ellis is a firefighter. They live separate lives, though they are hardly off each other's minds. And there's so much tension between them, and I think this is going to be phenomenal, and I cannot wait for it. So basically when they go to move their son into college, they decide to take a road trip to kind of give their relationship one last shot. And on the way home, they stay at all these like little places, like seems like they're gonna be camping. It's an extended road trip. So amid the gorgeous California coastline and the intimacy they have missed for years, Ren starts to think that it just might be possible to give their relationship another chance. But can the past truly be left behind. When the words fail and old wounds resurface, it's a soul-bearing letter that could finally reveal the truth or close the door on them forever. So I am so excited for this book because I really was upset that we got no conclusion from them in the previous one. So perfect timing for me to see that that was coming out. Tara DeWitt also writes very clean romances, if that is something that you appreciate. They are not very spicy, if at all. Also coming out on the 20th, more books coming out on the 20th, is Fredrik Backman's new book called My Friends, and I do have the arc for this one, so I'll be reading that pretty soon. And this follows 3 friends and this woman who is an artist that sees this picture of them, so she wants to get the full story of them. So this says, like, most people don't even notice them. 3 tiny figures sitting at the edge of a long pier in the corner of one of the most famous paintings in the world. Most people think it's just a depiction of the sea, but Louisa, an artist herself, knows otherwise and is determined to find out the story of these 3 enigmatic figures. So 25 years earlier, there were these group of 3 teenagers that had rough home lives and kind of took solace in each other, and they would sit down and like tell stories on the edge of a pier. So we have Jor, Ted, and Allie. So 2 boys and then Allie's a female. And then we also have an unnamed person who is an artist who hoards sleeping pills and shuns attention, but possesses an extraordinary gift that might be his ticket to a better life. So these 4 lost souls find in each other a reason to get up each morning, a reason to dream. And so this painting ends up in the hands of 18-year-old Louisa, who is our main character from this. And she takes a cross-country journey to learn the story of the painting, and it basically inspires her artistic talents as well. That is all I know. But I have yet to read a Fredrik Backman book, but I do have quite a few of them, and I am going to be reading one this month. It is on my TBR for this month, so I'm hoping everything that I've heard about him and his writing lives up to this, and I was very excited when I got approved for this arc, so I will be definitely reading that and reviewing it before it comes out. Another arc that I was approved for that comes out on the 27th of May is It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. So this is about Jane, who is a child actress that was like the punchline on a sitcom when she was younger, and now she's a studio executive and is trying to be taken seriously in Hollywood. So she promises the cinematographer, Dan, and also one-time crush, that she can have this famous pop star write a song for the show. And the singer was her first kiss, but they haven't spoken in 20 years, so she doesn't know that she can deliver on that. So she now has to go to Dan for this favor to help her get Jack, to help her basically get an in with Jack, because there is a festival in Dan's hometown that he has an in for. So her and Dan go to his hometown, and there's like close proximity there, and I think that the romance is going to be between her and Dan, while she tries to like prove to him that she is a serious executive, and he has to help her fulfill a promise that she made that she really couldn't keep probably without him. So I'm excited for this one. Her books are nice and short, so I think that'll be a fun beach read. I'm going to the beach in April, so I do plan on reading a lot of books there, and I think that one will be the perfect one for that. And then on the 27th, also coming out, is Everybody Wants to Rule the World, which is the second, and it is also a duology. I love when I find out series that I've started are duologies. The Lord Dobby series, which is by Django Wexler, and that is How to Become a Dark Lord and Die Trying. I read that book last year, and then this one is the follow-up to that, and this follows a girl that is living in almost like a video game kind of world, where every time she died, she was like set back to the beginning, and she thought she had to defeat the Dark Lord, and then eventually in the last book she just decided to be the Dark Lord, so she goes to the competition to become the Dark Lord, and this is the second and the final part of that story, so it's just going to pick up where the last book left off, so I can't really talk about it much because it will totally give away. I looked up the synopsis, it will totally give away what happened in the first book, but it was just like a funny, I don't know how to describe it, that book was just like a funny, raunchy good time. That's literally what it was. It is a man writing a female, and the way that he writes some of her thoughts is hilarious. And the book itself is just supposed to be, I think, like satirical, so it was a good time, and I will definitely be picking that one up when it comes out and finishing out that duology. And like I said, very excited it's a duology and not a series, because I didn't realize it was a series when I bought the first book. So we'll be picking that up and finishing that off this year as well. So that is all the books I have for the next 3 months. Again, I apologize for not being able to give super long explanations about these books. I have not read them yet, so I'm going off of what I can deduce from the small synopsis I get on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, whatever, wherever I can find the books. And I'm sure I missed a few, because there's so many good books coming out this year. It is crazy, and I think the spring has been like the time to release them. It feels like February, March, and April are just like big book release months this year. Last year it was like May, June, July, I feel like that a lot of the books came out. It's a little bit earlier this year. So it's been hard keeping up with all of them, and I will continue making my lists for the rest of the year, but there's already a few on there that I'm very excited for. So I'll see you in a few months when we do the summer version of this. But again, let me know if there's any books coming out in March, April, or May that you are very excited for, and let me know if any of the books we talked about today are also on your radar. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.